but I realize that every country is in a different phase of where you are in getting a movement working there. So I just spend a few moments here saying that there's different models that can be used according to what the need is in your location, in your region, your nation, whatever. But it's important to make spend some time making an assessment of where your local context finds itself there where you are. So I suggest 4 different models, and you'll see that these are all very flexible and you can pick and choose. But if you're not sure where your work is, Mahesh was saying you're way down past model 4, and we kind of have to think of model 5 for you. I'm sorry, I haven't had a chance to do that, but we'll probably need to work on that one. But here's the model 1 would be what I call from COVID to mission. Now, is this the first time you're going to get people together in a nation? And then I would suggest a COVID to mission one, because this is taking the pulse of the church in the aftermath of COVID and identifying the path from survival to effective mission. So this is something like we are giving a tool, we're giving a group of Christian leaders in a nation an opportunity to talk with one another. We are actually, for no reason other than we love to get the body of Christ together and to identify and get them thinking. So we're not trying to needle nose them into a church planting thing or anything. We're giving them a gift. What should we do from in the middle of or aftermath of COVID, wherever we are in that process, and identify a path from survival to effective mission? So that would be the model 1. The model 2 is taking the pulse of church planting in a nation and identifying the unfinished task. This is what David Miller, we have done a lot in Latin America. We just go zero in right in on the church planting pulse. That's what we've been doing. And then from there, after you get the pulse, then you can go on to model 3 and create a vision, and go on to 4 as actually help them into a movement framework. So that's so today I wanted to highlight model 1, because I think most people are in that area. Now, I don't know if that's true or not, but the desired outcomes are given there. The questions that you were asking, what questions you ask, they're lined out here. I'll give you a link to this document at the end. And here I do a contrast, a comparison between model 1. And so it's model 1, it's useful to engage the whole church. You don't have to ask just the church planters or the disciple making movements to this. Now you can ask the whole church, all the denominations, everybody, the leaders of the church together, and say, can you find 100 key leaders, or whatever you can. I'm just saying 100 because the first threshold in Zoom is 100 leaders. And can you get the whole church together? Will you really get the pulse of the whole church? Well, no, but you will get them of those 100 leaders of the church. And the second one would be all the church planting influencers. And the third one was you need to have committed church planting influencers. Anyways, let's go back to model 1. The whole church, and the motivation for getting people together is it responds to a felt need of the whole church to realign itself to present to the present context, I should say, of post-COVID-19. Leaders get seen, heard, and connected. And that's why a lot of leaders like to join this, because they say, wow, I'm going to be on a platform with other key leaders of the nation. I'm going to hear them. I'm going to be seen by them, and I'm going to be connected with them through this. And we know that we always like to feel the pulse of what's going on. So being a part of something bigger than their own organization. And of course, it's the opportunity to fulfill John 17, that we're really being one in the body of Christ. The level of commitment for model 1 is really low commitment. Basically, the commitment is, can you come and join us for 1, 2, or 3 different times? It's non-threatening. because you don't have to divulge who you know, who you don't know. You'll probably have to say who you are and what organization you're with or what church you're leading or something like that. It's very low commitment and low threatening. And the scope is more inclusive of different organization ministries. So it's a very wide idea, but it's bringing the body together like few organizations are able to do. And then the usefulness of this is to identify and build relationships with key planting influencers. Remember, in that 90 minutes that you're together, they have small group breakout rooms where they start hearing one another's vision and hearing one another's issues that they're being faced with, and they have connection. The next week, they have another 30 minutes, and the third week, they have another 30 minutes. So they've already had now an hour and a half of just breakout groups. That's not counting the other time where they start hearing what the struggles are of the other leaders. And it gives the whole church an opportunity to make a missional collaborative vision and strategy. It's really hard to produce that all in those 3 sessions, but it's going in that direction. It's going in that same direction. So there's the comparison, and I'm not going to go through the other ones right now, but let's go to model number 1. And so this is the COVID one, and this is patterned after what we did. So this has been tried and worked here in Spain, and it worked extremely well. The first time we had 80 people. Within 24 hours of advertising this, by the way, we did not advertise it just broadly. We had several organizations, several groups, including Lausanne and La Plaza and Evangelical Alliance, and we just had a small design group of people that we represented different things, and we individually asked different people to come. And within 24 hours of opening up, we had 107 people signed up for that. We got worried about that because we could only have 100. And by the time it came to the date and they signed in, there was only 80 people that signed in, which was fantastic. 80 people that were there for 90 minutes. And we went over a little bit in time, but they were there. And then with the second time, we had 70. And the third time, we had 60. So we considered that it a great success. And a lot of really good reactions and interaction between many different leaders from all over Spain and many different organizations and denominations, churches, ministries were represented. Older people, younger people, women, men, they were all represented on that. So after getting your design group or your leadership team together, which would be 5, 6, 7 people, in this case, it was these different organizations. We just came together as individuals and we said, what could we do to do this? And so this became preparation phase. Where are we? That's the big question, is where are we? A GPS can only tell where to go if it knows where it's at. And so how can the church know where it needs to get to if it doesn't recognize where it's at? So the very first week or the first session of 90 minutes is where are we? So the design team agrees on the program design, and then it agrees on how we're going to have the process for selecting the people and inviting them and confirming their participation. We just use a Google what do you call them? Google form, a Google form, and we send it out with the invitation. And if people want to be a part of it, they fill in the Google form, and it comes back. And so we get immediately their email, their phone number, their name, and those are the people that sign up for it. So we know approximately how many people are thinking of attending. So we use that part. And then the technology part, ensure that the technology system is ready, that the links are working for the Google Docs, and they set up and sent to each of the facilitators. I'll explain that in a minute. So There has to be a little bit of work on that. Also, it's great if the person who's running the technology is good at graphics, and then that it just makes it all look nicer because they've got extra bells and whistles that make it look a little more professional. So that's where we are, or preparation phase, and then the actual program phase is the actual 90 minutes that you run. This is starts with 10 minutes of welcome and prayer. So, of course, in Spain, as in many countries of the world, you probably have to leave more time there because people kind of drift in, even virtually. They kind of drift in when they feel it's about right to join. And so that's where we always started late because we couldn't get people there. But anyways, the welcome and the prayer, explain the concept and the mechanics of that, and it's just basically explaining what you're going to do in this time together, the 90 minutes. But the fact that we're not just lazy about the way we're doing it, it keeps people, and since it's a new method of doing things, even though they're a Spanish group of saying, well, we can sort of take it as it comes. No, we clicked that. We clicked the date, the time, and Carlos there had a big clock that he put on the screen, and that clock kept ticking, and people knew how much time, and I was surprised how well they reacted, how well they stuck with it in the thing. So the first of all is, what is the current situation? So you get one of your key leaders, someone in the group that understands what you're doing, and you tell them before, would you prepare a 10-minute talk on what the current situation is? It doesn't matter if he understands everything, but he does need to understand why we're needing to know what the current situation is and the importance of knowing where we stand within the church and in society. So they kind of explain this consultation, this 90-minute segment. Then from there, they go straight into breakout groups. So there's 30 minutes. And again, the clock is ticking, 30 minutes. The discussion in breakout groups of between 5 and 6. Now, if we had 100 people, so we gauged for 16 breakout groups. Well, we only have 8 questions or less. And so how do you do? Well, then you have to divide up the questions. So hence you get question 1-1. And then you have to make 2 or 3 groups that are wrestling with question 1-1. And then you question 1-2, then you get, and so over on the side, there's an example of how we found 16 different facilitators, and we talked to them before. Now this is good because now we ensure 16 people are going to be at the meeting. And they also bring some other key people because we need their help. And for each one of them, now we give a Google Doc with the questions that they as a facilitator need to answer. Because one thing, as you have known in these breakout groups, when you throw people randomly into a breakout group, often what happens is they begin talking about everything, and then in the last 3 minutes, they say, oh, we better get down to business. And so the facilitator was assigned the task of getting to know each other, praying with each other for a moment, and then getting down to business and answering the questions. And they facilitated in that way. And that person was tasked with writing the content of the group in the Google Doc. Well, of course, if you know anything about Google Docs, that goes right back into our computer. We have a copy of it. It doesn't get lost. It's saved automatically. And so we have the summary of what they came up with. So here are the questions for that first group. What has changed in the church? Now we're talking about COVID, survival to missional effectiveness. What has changed in the church since COVID came on? And you're familiar with the SWOT: strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats. So we kind of base the questions around that. And I could show you a Google Doc with the questions, but I will provide a link later. But one of the questions around, and we didn't just leave it so ambiguous, what has changed in the church in regards to the formation of missional disciples? How are you doing the discipling process since COVID started? Sorry. How are you doing that? Well, you're not doing it face to face, so you're doing it online. Well, what material are you using? How are you doing it? What's going on with that? But you can see a comparable question is in 2. What are the training methodologies and content in society that has changed? So all the kids around here, they started studying at home on their iPads. And so now the church the society is using iPads and internet to train their kids, and what's happening so we're comparing these two. What's happening in society, what's happening in church. Second one was the way you do community. How do you live? Church is a community. If we're together or not together, how are we doing community? What's changed? Well, we can't see each other. Okay, so how are you doing it? Well, we're meeting together on Zoom. Okay, yeah. So then we look down to the society, the way of life existing collectively. How are we doing? Well, we can't see each other. We need to preach from our rooftops, or we have to go to the grocery store with our masks on. We can't, so we're comparing community life in the church. When it says community life on 1:2 there, that's talking about in the church. And down on 2:6, it's talking about it in society, outside the door of the church. And then also the way of leading the church. What has changed in the way of leading the church in the last 60, 90 days? And what is the way that has changed in actual life? Where are people working? Are you working from home? Mom and dad working from home now electronically? Or are they not working at all? And how are they leading? Who's leading? Is it the government telling us what to do? Is it individuals, or mom and dad doing, what's going on and so you're studying these different ways that is affecting the whole world. All these things are changing. And 1:4 is the missional outreach. How are you doing mission outreach? What has changed in missional outreach? Well, we're doing a lot more social outreach. We're doing all, okay. What is changed in the way in the world? And instead of what's changed in the missional outreach, of course, for the world, we put in what new crises are being caused by the pandemic. And of course, one of those is the economic crisis. And now we're seeing a political crisis and many other crises that are coming up. And so there's for society. So now the analysis of this is bringing what happens in the churches differently, where we are, what's happening in society, where we are at the moment. And so at the end of those 30 minutes, that closes, and we go to a 5-minute taking the pulse. So now what many of you who have worked on your dissertations want people to react to things and you never get them back. Well, in a few seconds, we can get a poll from what 80 leaders, 100 leaders in a nation think about what are the most worrisome possible changes for the church. Economy, the new way to do meetings, how to stay on mission, uncertainty of the future, pastoral care of the congregation, should the church be subject to governmental criteria in pandemic situations, concepts related to virtual church versus face-to-face church, and what do you think? And so then, since it's an online poll, then everybody clicks on, we give them an opportunity 3. You can only pick 3 of those, and then we come out with the highest numbers on that. The same with question number 2. And so that basically takes 5 minutes. Now you can adjust those questions to whatever fits your situation, but you can do an online poll, a pulse, taking the pulse by polling, and it's very effective to see where people are in their thinking in a certain area. And then since we have 16 groups and we only have 15 minutes, we can't debrief all 16 groups. we have all the information on Google Docs for 16 groups, but we choose 3 or 4 groups, and we give them, and we tell them before, we tell the facilitator, you will be someone that will have to give your report to the whole group. And they all get their 3 minutes each to give a report and that gives a flavor to the rest. And we choose different groups. So in this case, we chose 3A, 4A, 7A, 8A, and you can pick and choose the ones, and those respond to the numbers up here of the groups. And then after they're done, and so we get an understanding of what the groups talked about, and then we have 10 minutes given to opinions, and this is really quite dynamic. This is amazing to me. Opinions are given by 2 or 3 pre-selected influencers, and they only have 3 minutes. And here again, Carlos puts his little timer on the screen. Well, I'm not going to say everybody's stage of their 3 minutes, but they put and this is where you ask people who are influential in helping people, their editorials, they're influencers, they're people that prophetic people that God has given the ability to look into the future, and so you give them 3 minutes to talk about their subject, or about this subject of where we are, what the church needs to be doing, and things like that. No comments on it. You just give them 3 minutes, and when one's finished, goes to the next one. And so we get 3 there, and that usually creates a lot of really good excitement there. And then we have that 10-minute conclusion, which probably gets a little less than 10 minutes because the opinion makers take a little longer. But there's the preliminary summary of the day, bringing it together, prayer, closing prayer, invitation for the next week, and the promise to send out a summary of the event during the week. And so between the week, we send out that, and someone has to be appointed to do that. So then after that's then, now you go into phase, the third part, the analysis phase. After that meeting's finished, and there's where the team comes together sometime, hopefully as soon as you can get to it after that, and you contrast the SWOT and the polling results and the opinions, and you search for main themes in that. And here's a beautiful opportunity to assign an analysis team. So it doesn't have to be the same design team, but find a group of people. And Carlos found a wonderful group of people, young people who were good at analysis, and he assigned them all 2 or 3 of the groups. And the 16 groups, they all brought them together, because you have to bring group 1A, 1B, 1C. They're all working on the same question. You have to bring all of them together into one. And so then now you have to take each one of the questions and pull them together and analyze them to really be fair with what people have said. When you get done with that, you make a summary of that. Carlos also helped us make a actual video summary of it. And you saw maybe some of those that I've sent out before. And we also had actually document summary of the data, so people can make different conclusions from what they saw coming out of those groups and what people were thinking. And so the idea is to bring that together, send out the summary, and then prepare. So then you start immediately preparing for week 2, and that's the preparation for phase 2, is where is God manifesting himself? So first, where are we? What is God doing? So, and then of course the third one is, what are we supposed to do? What's he asking us to do in a collaborative way? So basically, I won't go through all the detail on this one, but it's pretty much the same approach. The welcome, the prayer time at the beginning, the one person who sets the scene, he presents the theme. Some of it I didn't finish translating there, but the second one is, and we decided on the second one is, how is God working in a special way through this crisis? It's very hard for people to answer that question just straight out like that. And so it's the importance of knowing what God is doing. God often works through crisis in places where we have to depend on Him. We have identified these points of greatest concern are, how's God working in the health, in confinement? How, how's that working? How's He working in the economy and in the missional outreach or virtualization of everything, or instability? Where do we see God working? And so the questions come, where does one see God preparing or forming His body? We feel that crisis, God's either preparing the body to do something, or He is using the body to do something, and that we are His body. So we're around the area of preparation or actually doing something. And we feel that that's a biblical principle. So where does one see God preparing, forming His body to be effective in its mission as a result of this crisis? And how, so we talked about health, economy, mission, virtualization, and instability, the violence and the crises that are coming up. Now, those are the first 5 groups we're divided there. In the 6th group, they had a different kind of a question: is what changes is God bringing to society through the church, and from society to the church? How is God using society to change the church, and how is God using the church to change society? And so this is just giving some ideas. So we divide that up into those 16 groups again, and they all have their facilitators. Hopefully it's the same facilitators as last time, but with Zoom, it's really hard to get the same group together. We put the facilitators in, and then we let Zoom randomly put the people in, which was good, because often you end up in a team that doesn't work very good, and you're frustrated with that. So you meet new people in the group, and you get new opportunities. But the facilitator kept the line of thought going in their group for the whole time. 5, the survey or the poll, the online survey or the polling, and here again the detail of that, and then again giving the opportunity for the gathering of the information from the groups. So 3 or 4 of the groups are allowed to speak to that, and again influencers are chosen, different influencers are chosen to speak on. And here's, as a variation, you can help the influencers say, no, we want you to speak on what is God doing in the area of church planting, or what is God doing right now in the last 90 days in the area of discipleship making, or in the area of social work. And so those are different emphasis that are put on. The third one, there's the follow-up phase of that. But then the third one, sorry, I haven't finished translating that one, but that one changes a little bit, because when you come down to the third one, now you're starting to create, what does the collaborative vision look like? So you still built on the same theme of the welcome, the person gives the information of what happened the last time, and then you present the theme. And here where we went through the concepts of what vision and collaboration looks like. Are we competing with each other? Are we coexisting with each other? Are we communicating with each other? Are we cooperating? Are we actually at the level of collaboration? By the way, the poll showed that in Spain, no one put Spain at the level of collaboration, and very few put it at cooperation. Most people put Spain at the level of, we're only communicating with each other and coexisting with each other. Well, that just the question, of course, sends a huge, clear signal to the group and say, why, we're not at what we're supposed to be doing. We thought we're a lot further ahead. And in the end, we refine a vision for each one of these groups is now working on a vision. How can the church in the area of economy, what does church need to look like in the area of economy in their economy to help the people in the church and help the people in the nation. What's the missional response? What is the missional response in the area of Bible teaching, discipleship in this thing? And so we set out a vision of what we thought the church should work towards in the next 3 to 6 months. And so we actually lay out a vision. And then in this third time, we actually work on first steps, next steps. What are the next steps that we're going to do? So at the end of this, we have ended up with a vision statement for each one of these subjects that were mentioned up here. See if I can get to there again. Each one of these subjects, the economy, the health, the uncertainty, insecurity, and all that, we end up with a vision statement and next steps. And that will now be published in the PDF format for the whole church in Spain. But what we've come together, we also asked the question, who do you think are the key people, key players in this to make this happen? So we end up with something tangible at the end, something that they can actually get their teeth into. It's the program is all made out. You basically just have to say who's going to do what thing on the program. But what we mentioned last time, the key thing is to have 3 or 4 people that would say, yeah, we need to do something like this. We need to have something to help the church in our nation to understand how to go from survival into missional expression.